Welcome by the next episode of the Coffee and Pie, Coffee and Political Islam, with very unusual guests today. We don't usually do that because, and it was a very auspicious idea, I think, when we had a discussion together with my colleagues, that we decided that this month will be dedicated to the persecution of Christians and the influence of political Islam on Christianity and Christians in the past and in the history. And for that reason, we were thinking whom to invite, and I was thinking, yeah, I know two very, very interesting people. One of them is Olufemi, and I cannot spell your surname, so you will then introduce yourself, and I welcome you. He's from Nigeria, so now live from Nigeria, from Africa, Olufemi. Nice to see you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Mr. Milan. Yeah.
And Selman, we know each other for a long time. Selman is right now in Iraq. This is what you may not even think that it's possible, that why a person right now is joining to us from Iraq, because he is a Christian missionary, as well as Olufemi in Nigeria. And both of them are priests, and they are doing their job in those specific places. And I just would like to welcome you and let's have a conversation about exactly the topic, the influence of political Islam on Christianity and Christians. Welcome, Selman, also.
Nice to have me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so let's start with the first question. I think everybody may be interested in the subject of political Islam's influence on Christianity in Middle East or in Africa. So let's start with Olufemi. Can you say a little bit more first about your story? What's your background and how you came to the subject? Because it's not usual that people who are Christian missionaries in such parts of the world are also interested in political Islam. And why are you joining me on the channel which is dedicated to that subject? This is very unusual. So maybe you can tell your story shortly.
Thank you so much, Mr. Milan, for the opportunity. So grateful for the channel that has dedicated itself to creating awareness and education on political Islam all around the world. Thank you so much. Whereas for me, I'm Pastor Olufemi Oyerinde from Nigeria. You see, my story is typical of the Nigerian in the southern parts of this country, the Christians in the southern part of this country. You know, we grew up with the Muslims. We are families. We are like just families. We grew up together. My father was a Christian. My mother was a Christian, but they decided to send us to our grandmother's place in a Muslim environment. So, but what I noticed was that at that tender age of 6 or 7, I was gradually being introduced, like they were catching us young. I was like introduced to some Islamic lifestyle. They sent me to Arabic school, just primary or preliminary school, where we learn the alphabet, alif, ba, ta, sa, and so many other things like that. And then as we were growing up, I became one of those that carried the lantern. When a Malam comes to the city to preach, I carry the lantern on my head. Then we go to the market square, and the Malam preach. You know, as a young person, I was so attracted because the Malam will preach with stories, fine story that my man will be kind of reasoning with it, that this is wonderful. So I keep on growing like that. In the month of Ramadan, our grandmother will make us to fast. We are fasting, but sometimes, you know, we have our own way of fasting. When the grandmother is telling us, yeah, go and fast. When anytime she's not around, we carry water, we drink, clean our mouth. And then that's the kind of life we live. Because I didn't know what was happening. But at a point, and I realized that, look, my parents are Christian. They've never exposed me to Islamic religion. How come that my grandmother became the first person? She took me to mosque, both the Friday mosque and the early morning mosque. I begin to feel two identity within myself, that what is happening. But the imam of my town, they changed our name, because myself and my younger sister were living with my grandmother. They gave me Teslim. They gave my junior sister Amina. But until a day, I said, no, I am not a Muslim. My parents are far away somewhere, and gradually I'm becoming, you know, encultured into this religion. I started looking for a church. So that was the first step I took. I looked for a church, a Baptist church to be precise, and then I began to now commit my life to Jesus. So by 1980 September, I fully dedicated my life to Jesus. That's just the brief background about myself, growing up in a Muslim environment.
Maybe now a short story from Selman before we go into the current situation of Christians in Iraq and current situation and Middle East. I think people are interested what's happening there, as well as in Africa. So Selman, please, you're part of the story.
Well, I grew up in reality in a sheikh family. You know, he was sheikh in true kind. You know, he's like a Muslim imam, but he was also the sheikh of the tribe. You know, of our tribe. You know, we are from the mountainous region of Kurdistan in Iraq, and as usual, from my childhood, I learned and memorized the Quran. You know, I know that we have 114, you know, surah, that we have 6,600 plus ayah and so on. And of course, doing the normal rituals. And you learn a few things that at that time seemed very normal. You are just a little boy, you hear your father telling you something, your grandfather telling you something. But the amazing thing that we remember very, very well until this day, you know, that we had some neighbors, some Christians around us, you know, and every time they, you know, when there's some discussion in the family, they would tell you, look at them, you know, they are always clean, they are always well dressed. We were well dressed. We are a rich family, the sons of the sheikh, they were always well dressed. But look, they don't lie, you know, they don't steal. They are talking in a positive way about the Christians. But from the other side, when you sit with them home and when you go to the mosque every Friday, and most of the time, you know, even in funerals, you have to be there and to listen to the muezzin, you know, or the imam when he starts saying something. Suddenly he's speaking only negatives about the Christian and, of course, added that to the Jews. And just like a young boy, it was like a contrasting something in your brain, you know. From one side, they describe the Christian as the holy of holies, you know, but from the other side, when you are in the mosque, they are speaking in the negative. So I grew up in reality as a pious Muslim, but I have these like background questions, but I did not dare to because one day I was hoping, as I was taught from my youth, that I would be sitting on the mambar, the place where the imam sits, and I would be, let us say, calling for salah and explaining, you know, the Quran and the hadith and encouraging people for jihad. That was my background, you know, until, of course, later the Lord intervened and changed everything.
I remember the story, so if somebody's interested in Salman's story, you can go into his channels and you can watch it all because he has a full lecture describing his path. Okay, now let's go into the subject of political Islam and the Islamic influence on Christians and Christianity in your geographical areas. It's very unusual, as I said. We are now live from Nigeria and Iraq. This is what I think that the most of the Christians in the world, but it's not only about the Christians, it's about all the people around the world to understand what's happening and what happened in those countries. It's very, very important to see what's happening, and you are having the finger on it. You can feel it. You are there. So, Olufemi, what's happening right now in Nigeria and in Africa in regards to the Islamic influence on Christians and Christianity? And the same question will go for Salman.
Yeah, thank you so much again for the opportunity. You know, as I have said in the beginning, that the northern part of Nigeria and the southern part of Nigeria, they practice Islam differently. It's not the same. And in the southern part, as I said, most of the time we work together. Sometimes during Christmas, some of our Muslim brothers from Islam, they will come to celebrate Christmas. Then some people from during the major Muslim festival, some of them will come over to celebrate with the family. That is the way the Southern Christian and the Muslims live together. But in the North, it's quite different. It's quite different. And the orientation actually began many, many years before now. the colonial masters caused a lot of chaos for us in Africa, especially in Nigeria. You know, in Nigeria, they established double system of control. We have indirect rule system in the north. Then we have the direct rule system in the southern part of Nigeria. So most of the mission workers, they were allowed to evangelize in the northern part, the southern part of Nigeria. But in that part of Nigeria, because it's indirect rule, the colonial master worked through the malams, the emirs. So, and they kind of restricted proselytization among the northern people, the cultures there. So it's like the culture over there is purely Islamic, unlike what you have in the southern part of Nigeria. And that is why a typical northern person sometimes see the Muslims in the south as if they are not really Muslim, because he feels that they are not actually practicing what is written in Quran against the Christian. Whereas the Christian in the south and the Muslim in the south believe in the principle of you can serve your God, I will serve my own. Whichever one is better for you, go ahead and serve that God. But it's not the same thing like that. And you know, because we have this control from the north, the political power is majorly based over there in the north. Anybody who becomes the president or the leader, he has a kind of an understanding of what is there to do. So, and one of them is that most of the experience we have in Nigeria, one of them is that we have a situation where most of the people who rules Nigeria for many years are from the Islamic area. So most policies, you know, how the country will be governed, even the constitution and all those things were packaged by the influence of some of these people over there.
I had a question. What about the Christians? Yeah. How they feel that all those policies are being made with the Islamic intent, and how they react on this, and how much the Christian population in Nigeria knows about the Islamic politics or Islamic doctrine in general?
Yeah, you see, the issue is that most Christians in Nigeria will have this kind of nonchalant attitude, especially from the southern part of Nigeria. You don't want to know anything about, okay, what is it that Islam is trying to do in Nigeria? No, they don't want to know. Sometimes when you try to raise this issue, oh, keep quiet, don't talk about it. You know, we are united in this country. Fine, say, well, we are united, but A, B, C, X, Y, Z, can you just find out why this is happening? Say, no, 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 no. In fact, many of them believe that power given to the north is like a birthright. You know, someone else say, okay, they are the one leading us, they are the one ruling us because of some of the things that has happened. Let me give you an instance. For example, now, the Fulanis of Nigeria, they believe that Nigeria belongs to them. You know, and you know that they are basically an Islamic tribe. There was a time we were traveling in the northern part of Nigeria. They asked a Fulani man that, where are you from? He said, anywhere in this world, in this country, belong to us. So that understanding is mingled with the religion, that from top, we can control the rest of the country. And the Christian South does not have the understanding that, well, when you go to politics, do you project your own agenda? No, 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 no. Don't do that. They believe that since the power is from the north, then it should continue that way in some cases.
It's in a sense, it sounds to me like a submission to the Islamic political will, what you are saying, actually. I have another question which I will ask you later, just you can think about this in the meantime, because there are so many, I think many people, not only I do need to have some answers. Why the Africans are accepting the Islamic teachings? Maybe also someone can answer to that. when one of the biggest slave traders in the history were from, as well, Islamic slave traders. And I think that the majority of the people who are now listening does not know that almost all the slave trade coming to the North America from Africa was happening by the Islamic slave trade. So we will speak about this too. That's an interesting issue, because you would say, okay, when that was okay in those times and Muhammad himself had slaves, like why Africans and also African Americans, for example, are accepting the Islamic teachings and they are, for example, converting to Islam or accepting it. That's an interesting question later. But for now, Salman, the same question. What's happening in Iraq right now? What's the situation? How do you evaluate it? And we can also extend it a little bit to the Middle East, maybe.
Well, and let me just tell you, from my side, and the situation in Iraq is very unstable. When I was a young boy, we had this problem. Let us say, you are a Christian, I'm a Muslim, but we did not have this enmity like today. We did not have segregation. We were living Christians, Muslims, and even Jews at that time, and others were living together. We had no problem in reality. Though the doctrine, it was said, but it was theory. But if I think back just 50 years back, then let me go further. The time when the Iraq-Iran war began, 22nd of September 1980, then you have polarization, Everybody was for Iraq, but let us say the minorities, they were pushed forward in the war. So most of the victims of the war between Iraq and Iran, they were from the minorities, either Kurd, Christians, Yazidis, or Sabi'i, or others, Later, after, let us say, the turmoil of the 90s and the American invasion, with, of course, false pretexts and claiming that we have, weapons of mass destruction, then something else happened. We did not have Al-Qaeda there. Al-Qaeda was everywhere at that time, but was not in Iraq. They were so afraid. Saddam told them, if any one of you ever enter Iraq, then I'm going to eradicate all of you. The moment he's gone, then Al-Qaeda entered. Now we have literally segregation, fighting between the Shiitan in the south and Sunnitan in the middle and the north of Iraq. Then fighting between the Arabs and the Kurds. You see, we had big problem, and the American did not manage that. But look what happened now. Before we were living as Iraqis, now we are living as Muslims, Christians, or else. And the political Islam began to literally appear slowly but surely, even through the government that was installed by the American. Suddenly, we have application of the Sharia law, which was not applicable during the time of Saddam Hussein. Many, they don't know that. Suddenly, that the Christians who were living in the south, among the Shiitan, they were harassed to the point that they had to leave their property and migrate first to Baghdad, and later they were attacked even in Baghdad by Al-Qaeda and other groups. We have atrocities, terrible people, they can not forget, what happened then. So they migrated even further to the north among the Kurd. The Kurd, they are Muslim Sunnitan, but let us say they are the more tolerant, but not completely, because with time also things are changing. So you see, the face of Iraq changed because of political Islam, because of the agenda that they had in their mind, because let us say the teaching as written in the Quran, that of course inna al-dina 'inda Allah al-Islam, which means religion is for God, it's only Islam. So suddenly, everyone else is supposed to submit. And that's exactly what Islam really is. Today, if I want to say Iraq needed a constitution, as I call it, it is so divided. The president must be a Sunni, the prime minister must be a Shia, and the speaker must be from, the minorities, either Christian or Yazidi or so on. But this is not the right way, You cannot do it like this. Political Islam in reality destroyed my country. It was, though we had the hate, the subtle hate towards others, but was not put in practice. Today, you can see it everywhere, and everybody remembers, the slaughter that happened after the fall of Saddam Hussein. How many thousand of Christians were slaughtered? How many thousand of Shiite and Sunni were slaughtered? And that was magnified when ISIS, came and conquered Mosul. I'm talking about June 2014, and then the whole world saw the horror of Islam. That was the pure political Islam, crucifying little Christian children because they could not understand why should they become Muslim when they are Christians.
Because you are actually, maybe people don't know much about you yet who are listening to us and or watching the video, because you have a formal education in Islamic teachings. You are actually a certified imam, aren't you, officially?
In reality, I studied, in the University of Umm and I have a doctorate degree in the study of Islam, the Islamic Sharia, the Hadith, the Sirah Nabawiyya, and as I said, I learned that from my own family, and later I have a degree.
A question on you.
I could be sitting on a member and teaching Islam.
I have a question on you. What Islamic State did when you described the atrocities by Islamic State, is it or is it not according to the Islamic teachings?
The reality, they were the perfect Muslim. They imitated the Prophet Muhammad 100%. And it is written in the Quran 91 times, Ya ayyuhal mu'minina a'malu ma amala nabi, which means that all you believer or you Muslim, you just imitate the Prophet and what he did. And they did exactly what Muhammad did. So they were the perfect Muslim. That's why they were the Islamic Khalifa.
Question on you. I think that, yeah, maybe let's come to that a bit later. Let's go back to Olufemi, to the question of why Africans are eager or accepted the conversion to Islam in the past and currently, and also maybe African Americans, when there is this big thing of the Islamic slave trade and Muhammad himself was a slave owner. Is it like that the current Islamic community doesn't know that, or that the Christian community doesn't know that, or is it even an issue or not, or is it a topic?
Basically, lack of understanding of the religion has made several Black Africans to migrate into Islam. They didn't study the religion very well. For example, some of the women that are converted to Islam in America, they never ask what is the future of a woman in Islam. They don't know about it. But you see, the American system also aided the conversion of some of these Africans, I'm sorry to put it this way, some of these Africans into the religion. Let me make a point here. The point is that, in America, this individualistic lifestyle, that everybody is on his own. Then you find a group that is ready to embrace you. There's temptation to say, okay, let me follow those people that are trying to embrace me. Let me go and follow them, even though you don't understand the concept of the religion. It is when you get inside there that
you say that the social aspect, it's more important than the proper knowledge of the scriptures. Because if this would be known that Muhammad was a slave trader, because that's one of the key figures in the Islamic world, right? He is the founder of the whole Islam together with Allah, as written in the Quran and in the Hadith. So that may be an interesting thing. Shouldn't every African know that Muhammad was a slave owner, that he was a slave trader, that he had sex slaves, and that the Islamic slave trade was happening over the ocean?
Who would teach them? who will expose them to the knowledge?
And that's the question. That's the question on you. Who should? Who should?
That's what we are advocating, that it's important that when you are going into a religion, you should go into religion with your senses. You should know what you are going into. You should have an opportunity to know, oh, a two political party, different manifesto, which one you like going into. But in Africa or in the North African, non-American situation, most of them are not studying the religion. They don't have time to study. It's more or less social pressure that made them to make up their mind to migrate. If anybody has been teaching them, if you have a friend and you sit the person down, do you have any idea of what Islam is talking about? You, or you, a woman, what do you think is your future in the religion? You know, it will not give you the opportunity to reason out. Oh, it is true. Let me think about this step. Because I used to tell some of the people I come in contact with that, look, this is not about fight. This is not about quarrel. We have two political systems with different manifestos. We present to you Jesus. You present to us your religion. As your religion can offer. Then what can we offer? You look at the two. Intelligent person will decide based on the antecedents of what each person, each religion is practicing. But if you don't know it, you don't know it.
So the question to Selman, actually, to follow up what you say, is that because we spoke about is that you are doing the evangelization of different communities, you said that when you do it, you mainly speak about Muhammad and about Allah. You're not really doing anything else. I mean, that's what Olufemi says, right? That if people would know what's in the scriptures, they would have a choice.
Yeah, but you see, he's right in the one thing. It's just the social pressure, you know, because that's exactly what was happening. Look, if I was confronting some people, black people who are in Muslim communities, you know, sometimes we go some places in America, you know, we go every year there and we have this, you know, like servant trip and outreaches and other stuff and so on. So when you talk to them, and he will tell me, this is the Ummah, which means, you know what Ummah, you know that for Muslim, but this is like my family, you know, I am home here, you know. So these people, most of them in Islam, of course, political Islam abuses that. Their needs, they are lost, they are, you know, individuals, you know, they have no future, nobody around them. So, and suddenly somebody comes and he's offering them everything just to say, I'm a Muslim, you know, there is no God, but Allah and Muhammad is a prophet. I mean, he's willing to sell his mom, you know, just to find somebody to literally to be with him. So, and when I was telling them, and I told them, look, and even look, I speak Arabic, I speak Kurdish, I speak Arabic. Look, in Arabic language, the word abd, it is talking about abd means slave, but it means also black man. So every African in the eyes of Arabs is a slave. This is what Islam uses. This is what Muhammad uses. This is what the Quran uses. So, and he was shocked. He said, do you want to tell me that my Allah is calling me that I am a slave? I told him, yes, you go and read it yourself. And that was a hit. That was a shocker, you know. And I believe after that, that small community that we were, let us say, going to trying to help them with social stuff, you know, food and clothes and other stuff like that, and sometimes just to spend time with them and to listen to them. I believe it's a crumble. I believe they just not only left Islam, no, they were more knowledgeable of Islam than I ever thought, because they went and they have it available everywhere in the internet. And they were literally checking and they found out, well, if so-called our prophet was calling us like slaves, and if he was owning a slave, if he has sex slaves, he was selling a slave, he was gifting a slave. So, and they discovered that 95%, if not more, of those black African, they were sold by Muslim traders, so they could finance let us say, Ghazwa, you know, that's the invading other countries and conquering them. So this is the point.
It's just heartbreaking, the level of lacking knowledge in the society
Ignorance.
about the
And
subject of political Islam. It is, right?
you know, many they don't know that slavery is until this day. It is valid in Islam in every Islamic country. And if you go in the Gulf, you will be shocked how many enslaved people there. You know, and they have no rights. The moment they come supposedly to work, and she's a possession of her master. He's taking her passport, and he's demanding from her everything that you can imagine, and she cannot say anything.
Question on you, Salman, before I go back to Olufemi, is that you spoke about the American invasion into Iraq and the fall of Saddam Hussein. You are not the first one who told it to me. I also spoke with one Christian priest who was at this time actually in Iraq, and he had to escape. He was also kidnapped multiple times. And he told me that I asked him, how was it before and after Saddam? And he told me something what you said. So just to confirm your story is that during the Saddam Hussein rule, that he felt more safe. That's what he said, which is a very controversial topic, because this is something what people usually don't open up, but it's try, and now for all of you who have problem with that information, try to ask Iraqi Christians to this question, yeah, when they felt more safe. And also remember that Islamic State appeared after the fall of Saddam Hussein, and you see what happened in Iraq afterwards, yeah. But it actually shows an interesting principle, which is called, and Bill Warner labeled it as a gravity of Muhammad. That in every single country, there's always some kind of movement to go away from the Islamic doctrine and to be more modernized and to get into something what we call in the non-Islamic countries modernized. So you would go away from the Islamic doctrine to be more safe and to be more open to the society and to be more inclusive, to be more just, you know, with people. And usually then comes some reform movement. A reform movement is not the same in non-Islamic countries as in the Islamic countries. Reform movement is, for example, Al-Qaeda or Taliban or Islamic State. That is a reform movement. But the Islamic reform means to go back to the origins, back into the 7th century of Muhammad. So usually, and now the question comes, is that it's like also one of our colleagues from Israel, he defined it as a temporary moderation, that there is nothing like moderate Islam. It doesn't exist. But you can have a temporary moderation, and it can be by different sources done, right? But always the gravity of Muhammad, when the people are spinning out of the gravity, you see, it always comes back to some reform movement. And Islamic State, of course, was one of those reform movements. Interestingly, that the translations of the words like Taliban, it always has something to do with teachings and knowledge.
Yes.
Yeah. So the question is about what do you think? Because then what to explain to people? They say, but Saddam, you know, Hussein, some in the eyes of our listeners, very much a negative individual as it was presented in the non-Islamic countries in the past. What would you answer to them? Because it happened also through the Arab Spring, and we have it happening all the time.
Yeah, thank you for the question. You know, the problem is, as I said, you have the propaganda. You know, the media never gives you, you know, the true picture. Only when you live it, like me, you know, my family and 1,000 of other families, you know, millions of Iraqis. Look, under Saddam Hussein, people today, they describe him like a dictator. But let me shock you. This is a shocker for many other people, you know. Without boasting, you know, I studied my whole life. I have 8 degrees. I have 2 doctor degrees. I have a magister degree. I have a high diploma. I have a bachelor degree and others, you know. And I speak 7 languages, you see. In my country, if you ask now the people, the most hated Saddam, I'm talking about the court, about my people, you will be shocked to know that many of them, I hear them with my own ears. They curse the day that the American came and got rid of Saddam. He was kinder and more loving and more helpful to them and to his people, including the court, despite all the crimes that he committed, as they say. You see? So I wanted to imagine, if Saddam Hussein that described like worse than the devil, and imagine his worst enemies, they wish if he comes back.
Isn't it heartbreaking? Isn't it heartbreaking that
It is,
what political Islam does is that people rather, and now I mean it very seriously, that people rather go for a persona like, and they can say he was kinder, that you have those personalities appearing in different Islamic countries, which make the separation between the state and the Islamic teachings temporary available for the society, and then you are in the situation that the people are choosing between different types of hardship, and they choose this one. Yeah, that's imagine that they have what was the choice in Islamic countries right now, either to go for this or something else. I think that there is a very limited choice if you would like to go away from the Islamic teachings, because always and that's the practical implementation, because you cannot really separated from the Islamic point of view, the Islamic teachings with the politics. It's interwoven. From the non-Islamic point of view, you can divide it, of course, yeah. But from the Islamic point of view, you can't.
Every Muslim country is a reality, is a theocracy, whether you like it or not, because you cannot separate, it's just written in the Quran. The teaching is very clear. You have to follow only what Allah said, whether you are a president or prime minister or doesn't matter who. And many people, they misunderstand political Islam. They think that, oh well, some radicals hijack Islam and they do that. On the contrary, those who supposedly hijack Islam, they are practicing 100% what the Quran teaches, what the Sharia teaches, what Muhammad practiced. And in my country, if I look back and see my society today in Iraq, and I am living literally in the midst of my enemies, but I love them, and I work hard to let them understand what is happening. Today, Iraq is radicalized in such a way, not modern, but radicalized, going back to the 7th century. Even high educated people, they have doctorate degree and more, they are blinded. They want the Sharia law. They treat others exactly like Muhammad. He treated everybody who's not a Muslim. They are just kafir for him, and they deserve to die. And I am glad that we, as a Christians, we still have the power of God, the power of His Spirit, to literally change, turn the page and bring it back, to the light.
And we'll come back to this, because I'm interested because I know some of your stories and I would like to ask you on them. But before we come back to that, I will go back to Olufemi about Africa. And you spoke about Nigeria. And what's the situation in Africa in regards to political Islam, the Christians? Because we cannot see. I can see, because we search in CSPAI, in the Center for the Study of Political Islam International, we do look for information about atrocities connected to political Islam's attack and jihadi attacks against the Christians. It's one of the most unspoken topics in the non-Islamic countries, in the West. It's so many people dying and nobody puts the finger on it. And I would like to speak about this today. It's very important. So many Christians are dying because they are kafirs. And you use the word kafir, Selman, so I will just it's a derogatory word used in the trilogy in the Quran, Sirah, and the Hadith for non-Muslims. And Christians are sometimes described as the people of the book, but they would have to follow the Quranic scriptures to be the Islamic Christians, what I call it, yeah. They usually don't follow that, and therefore they are falling under the category of kafirs. So this is this very derogatory word where everybody meets who is a non-Muslim. So
even Buddhists, even Hindus,
everybody, yeah.
Jew, don't forget, even atheists,
Exactly. So Olufemi, what is the situation right now? When we speak about the whole Africa and when we speak about the whole continent, what's your take on it?
Okay, thank you so much again for the question. I want to tell you that in Nigeria, there is a very, very unique situation in Nigeria. I told you one of the things that happened in the past during the colonial masters' days is affecting Nigerians up to today. That is this indirect root system that I mentioned. And the ethnic group, the Fulani ethnic groups, they had an expanse of land controlled by them in those periods. So even to the boundary of the present southwest, of Nigeria. Mm-hmm. So the idea now is that from generation to generation, some instructions were passed down that mm-hmm. Look, that land we conquered before. It was our land. So generation to generation, you must take that land back. That's an aspect of what is going on in Nigeria in terms of ethnicity and land issue. The religious aspects is also very, very prominent. When the Boko Haram came, their first attacks were sending bombs to churches, marketplaces, motor park, and then several people, churches, people were dying and all those stuff was happening. So I see that as a result of what they learned from Islam. Because I come to think of it, before a normal human being will carry out killing, something must have motivated that person to do what he has done. So the force of the doctrine that they imbibe, you were talking before about moderate or non-moderate.
I was saying that the moderation, there is nothing like moderate Islamic doctrine. That's not a possibility, but there is a temporary moderation, how my colleague is calling that, is that, for example, you have some autocratic leader who separates temporarily the Islamic scriptures and the doctrine and the Shariatic demands from the government. That can happen on a temporary basis.
Yeah.
But always when this person falls, it comes back. Yeah.
It's also the same thing in what we are going through in Nigeria today. There are some Muslims that they will not participate because they are not really acting on the text. So those ones that are not acting on the text, you can see, okay, they are my friend. They still see Christians as their friend. But those who have studied the religion, and that is where my problem lies. Those who have studied the religion and they want to be correct, good Muslims, they will be the one participating in some of these things. So, and that is why when you're talking about political Islam in Nigeria, we go to the text. What are the texts said about some of these things? In the West, I think it was George Bush during the 9/11, maybe he said, this thing has to do with Islam, it's religious or thereabout. That was some of the statements that he mentioned after the 9/11. But for those who actually read the Quran, what is inside it? Where is the motivation, to attack others? Where is it coming from? So that I'm saying that, yeah, a lot of questions have to be asked that a normal human being cannot see a fellow human being being slaughtered.
What makes you, as a Christian missionary, what makes you as a priest and a Christian missionary to speak about political Islam? Because we got in touch together, you wanted to learn more about the subject. Even before we met together, you started to do some lectures about halal. You got very much involved in that. Very unusual. Okay, imagine a priest from Austria or from United States says to you, Olufemi, you should, stay by what you know. You should stay with Christianity, do it well, and, go your own way. And what we do say to this priest right now sitting, now imagine now a Catholic priest is listening to us somewhere in the middle of Germany. And he sees those two amazing people here, courageous, charismatic, going into risk with their own faith, with their own lives and everything. But at the same time, because they are always teaching the people to speak about political Islam the way you are extremely kind and you perceive all of the people as brothers and sisters. You are having this big heart and this big attitude, to, save the humanity. What would you say to this priest, a Catholic priest who says, better stick with, your evangelization efforts. Don't go into the education about political Islam. Why I should do that? Why to make an effort? Why to make problems to myself?
One of somebody raised an objection when we are talking about critical Islam. She said, "Let's leave them alone. Let's play ostrich. That don't
Ostrich.
talk about it.
Ostrich.
Yes, don't talk about it, because as you are talking about it, if you're not talking about it, naturally the problem will go away." So that's a lie. It can't go away that way. Okay. Yeah. It can't go away that way. It's better for you and I to know. You need to be aware. Okay, what is it in this book that make somebody to develop sudden hatred for a fellow woman being?
Why should I care? Why should I care? Imagine I'm now a Catholic priest, because we know we don't have too much response from the Catholic Church, and the Catholic Church should be, according to all of the data, I think, giving more attention to persecution of Christians around the world. And I think there needs to be some cross-denominational effort to help to the Christians around the world. Why should I care?
Our problem is that our theology is faulty. Most of our religious leaders, they read the Bible, but they don't believe that actually what is written in the Bible is practicable. Okay, Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. Nobody comes to the Father but by me." And you are a Christian. You believe in that scripture. You have read that scripture. That means that if you have 1.6 billion of people outside the opportunity to at least delve into understanding of who Christ is, I wonder, who are you standing for? Who are you representing?
Yeah, but why about political Islam? I understand, but why about political Islam? Why to teach about Islamic scriptures? You are why?
Let me raise a situation. Look, talk about Allah now. One of the subjects that I raised. In Allah, most of the products that we buy is halal certified, and then Christians are also
buying them.
Buy it by force. We are buying it by force. But from my own research, I discovered, okay, the money coming out from Allah, where is it going? Or the money that are being paid for certification, where is it going? So, and I said, no, this is not fair. It's not fair. Because if I am paying, somebody else is taking the money and investing for themselves. So am I reasonable? So I need to understand what is going on. And the issue of that payment, the issue of that, the money is coming from my pocket, that by proxy, I am supporting the agenda of the other religion.
Thank you.
I hope you understand what I'm saying now. That is why, that's one of the reasons.
You pretty much told it all.
Yes, that's one of the reasons I advocate for people to understand. But you see, just as I said, that most of the people are nonchalant. People want things to go on the way it is. Don't disturb, don't ruffle any feather. Just keep on paying. Just keep on paying it. And I feel so sad that, look, we should be able to benefit even from this halal money. We too that are contributing, we should benefit from it. But it's not possible because it's attached to a doctrine, which unfortunately most of the religious leaders are not aware of.
Same question on Selman. Okay, you have a priest sitting here in front of you, let's say a Catholic priest, and I'm interested what you would tell me why I should not care about because usually now when I get it from the Catholic churches, the information, it's more about living together, ecology is the main topics, specifically in the Western countries. It's more about the environment. Of course, there is a lot of kindness and a lot of support. It's not about that. It's about, of course, there is a lot of support and financial support and the charity. It's all true. But we have this big issue, the elephant in the room, the immense persecution of Christians, but not only Christians, but in this case, they would like to put the finger on it, okay? So we have this immense issue of persecution of Christians in the world. Why should I get involved in that? Because isn't it better here in my, small town to lead the church? Or we can also go wider, why the Christians in general should care and what they should do.
Yeah, if you remember, we held those seminars about political Islam in Europe, every country, even in America. And the question was always this, why is it so interesting? And yeah, I'm glad that some people from the Republican Party, they invited us, and we held a very big conference, from many counties. They came there and they asked a question. And I thought it was very simple. Iraq, the whole Middle East in reality, even the Arabian Peninsula, it was a Christian.
They didn't know.
Islam came. Yes, this is the truth. From the first century.
Did they know? Did they know that or not when you said that?
The problem, they were like a shocker for them. They did not know that. They think they are the Christian. They came just yesterday, For us, I think the American church, they came just yesterday. For us, Thomas, the doubter, he came here and evangelized the Assyrian people, and we believed in the time of the apostles in Iraq. So Christianity was established. The first church was built in Iraq in 75 AD. I mean, people, they don't know that. So you tell them, I talk to you about political Islam because once my whole country, my whole region was a Christian. But we did not care about political Islam when it came. Nonchalant, my brother, he says, and he's absolutely right. Let things be. Let us just pray for them. Let us just love them. We do that. But the problem is when I know that, like with me, you remember when I had this cancer here, so I went to the doctor so they could treat it. You see that? So they just take care of it. Otherwise, it will spread. And that's exactly what happened. That's why we have to care, because if we don't care today, then we have nothing to care about tomorrow, because we too will be slaughtered like million other Christians in the Middle East and worldwide, So that's why it is, I love Muslims. I love everybody else, I love everyone on this earth, and I want them to be in the light. And my point is, if we don't make them aware of what political Islam is doing and could do to them today, because regret in the future would not undo what they did. How could I bring back, the glorious time of Christianity in the Middle East after all the slaughter, that had happened here? So it is not a matter of dialogue, because let me tell you one thing. In Islam, there is no dialogue, because for them, it is written in the Quran. You can read it there, very clear, Surah number 9, verse 29, and the religion for Allah is Islam. Finish. You cannot discuss it.
Well, I wanted to raise an issue about educational system in Nigeria. There was a time it was God that saved us. I don't know whether the plan is still on. The curriculum was changed, and then Christian religious knowledge was changed, and they call it religious studies. So just religious studies, and that religious study is meant to be taken by a Malam. So they were not deliberately not appointing a Christian teacher. So they just call him a religious leader who will come and teach both Christian and Muslim the same thing. So a particular school in question, I went to the principal. I asked, why are we not having Christian religious teacher? He said, that is what, that we have tried all our best, we could not get Christian religious teacher. And that is why he, as a Malam, is one teaching the Christian religious study together with the Islamic religious knowledge. I said, how do you do that? How do you teach our own children Christianity or Christian study from your own Islamic perspective? He said, yes, when I was growing up, I learned about I went to a Christian school. I learned about Christianity. I said, that is not enough for you to talk about Christianity, because what they will now do is that they don't have, they don't want people to listen to, they will teach the children. And the children are tender. Some of them, they have not read their Bible. It's whatever is said there, they will embrace eventually. So I now ask the principal, can I suggest somebody that will be coming to teach these children Christian religious knowledge? And well, he agreed. We have to look for NYC, a Christian National Youth Service Corps member that came to the school now to begin to teach. No, just imagine that is a school. If you have Christian schools, I mean, you have public school all over like that, that are merged together, forced to listen to the doctrines of Islam. And the only time they can listen to the church doctrine is when they go to church or their Sunday school. But the matter is now worse, because most of the churches are not running Sunday school. To give the children a kind of background. So that's what we are advocating. Look, this thing cannot continue. We cannot just have a religious study, a religious teacher. We must have Christian religious teacher and Islamic religious teacher. Thank God things are changing now. Or we have learned that they have now separated it again. Before, everything's together. But in another part of Nigeria, yeah, that thing is still happening. But today, a lot of things are changing now.
I would like to also mention that this is a very inspirational, that things can be changed by effort, and it's about that people are understanding what's happening and doing something also for that purpose. And if you have a purpose and you know why you do things and you understand how political Islam can destroy the lives of the people in your country, you do something about this. So I appreciate really that you both are doing so much. Question on Selman, one of the last questions, and this is that I'm having more and more information, and also from you, but from also other people, that in the Middle East we have a mass levels of conversions, that we can see that. So on the other side, in the Western countries, we have more and more conversions towards Islam, but also we have also more and more conversions towards Christianity in, for example, Iraq and Jordan and other places, but also to Zoroastrianism in Iran and so on. So what you can tell about it, because I heard about very high numbers, spoke with one Iranian, also missionary, and the person told me that we can speak about that 60% maybe, like, and this is a like not overestimate, are actually converted, or they are not really practicing. They are practically very lukewarm about the Islamic teachings. What's your take on it?
Let me give you the good news, and I am an optimist, because if a sinner like me came to life through the grace of God, if somebody who has a doctorate degree in Islam is supposed to preach death and destruction, Allah and Muhammad, and I'm preaching life, an eternal life, then there must be hope. There must be something happening. And yes, ask me, the good news is that missionary from Iran, he told you the truth. It is more than you imagine. We don't need, be two bombers to destroy Iran. We need only to support the underground church, and the system will crumble, and Christianity will prevail then. Because Iran was once Christian until the 6th century, until Islam came and by the sword conquered it, and turned them to Islam. They were Christians. Yes, they had remnant of the Zoroastrian religion, but the majority, they were Christian. The emperor at that time, and Mesopotamia, which means Iraq, was part of the Persian Empire in the 6th century, he was a Christian. You see that? So yes, we have this amazing conversion even here in Iraq. If you come today to Iraq, you will be shocked. We have more churches today in Iraq, even evangelical churches, not only, what so-called traditional churches, Catholic and Orthodox and a Protestant. No. But we have also others. But my point, we have today more churches in Iraq than before ISIS attacked us. Millions of people live in Islam, millions I'm talking, and I'm connection with people, even in China, Muslim in China, they are converting. In Indonesia, in Pakistan, we are always in the underground church, we are always connected to one another. We have our ways, how to communicate. And so yes, Milan, things are happening here.
Let's now conclude the whole event together. I think I can call it a success. It's a big experiment because, as you know, CSPAI, we are non-religious, non-ideological, we are independent organization. So what we do not do is really go into the religious aspects of the Islamic doctrine. I think we managed quite well, considering that we are speaking with 2 priests and 2 missionaries and 2 very courageous individuals who are preaching in the places like Nigeria and Iraq. By the way, live from those places right now, together with us. I would just like to ask you for some concluding words. What would you suggest? What would you suggest to all the people who listen to us? And also consider that all the people who are listening to us are of different backgrounds. Then they can have a Christian background, Hindu background, atheist background, Buddhist, Hindu background, as well as Islamic background. So what would you suggest, the general message? What do you would like to say as a conclusion to that talk today? Olufemi.
Let me just summarize. There must be a thorough education about political Islam in churches. Then also all the various religious groups, anybody that wants to commit to a particular religion should do his own personal research about the claims of the leaders of those religions. Those are the major things I want to.
Thank you so much, Olufemi.
Milan.
Selman.
All right, with all love to everybody, I went through darkness and I was pulled to the light. So my conclusion is this: if you want to live in peace and to accept others as they are, remember one thing: there is always an enemy in the dark. Even for Muslims, I love Muslims and I encourage them to go and to read, their own books. And then let just a normal, just very normal, simple, human logic, just to be used, to understand these things that might seem complicated, but they are not. Because you cannot condemn everybody else just because he's not like you. If your God is the true God, he would not do that. You see. So for Christians, you have to be aware, that even the Satan, he will come like, the angel of light, and he is the father of darkness. And for those who have any other religions, the same. You need to understand, knowing the enemy is half of the victory. And the enemy, he comes to you sneaky. He comes to you with deceptions. He comes to you with false claims. You cannot claim to be, a religion of peace, for example, when you use the sword to subdue your enemies. Political Islam has an agenda. And over generations, for the last 14 centuries, they use different tactics. Today in the West, they are using exactly the Christian tactic. They are literally evangelizing on the street and distributing Qurans and other stuff, And as my brother said, they are using social system to attract people to come in their community because they could help them, financially. They have to give them that is a shoulder to rest on. But beware, as I said, the wolf is coming just like a sheep. And if you are not aware, then you will be lost. The schools, they have to show. Why do we talk only about the negatives? Let us talk about the positives. In many schools, they teach Quran, even in America, but they are not allowed to even, to say the Lord's Prayer, let us say. And this is wrong. For in India, for example, I was there many times. I like that the Hindu people, the Hindus and even the Buddhists, they know more about Islam than Muslims. To my horror, I discovered. And then, so yes, at the end of the day, we have to be aware that political Islam, it is political, it is Islam, and it has an agenda, conquering the whole world. Do you want to be slave your whole life? That's the question.
Thank you.
I
Thank you very much. Thank you both, and let's be this podcast an unusual podcast, a truly unusual podcast for our channel, to be the testimony and the beacon for the mankind, and that people understand what's happening in the parts of the world where people usually not look, and they are not usually presented in the media so often as they should, by two men who are of very high level of courage and human integrity. So thank you so much. Thank you for your time, and that you are who you are and you do what you do.
Thank you. Thank
you so much.
Thank you so much.
You.